والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد سيد المرسلين وخاتم النبيين وعلى آله وأصحابه الطيبين الطاهرين ومن اتبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله ولا شبيه ولا مثيل له ولا ضد ولا ند ولا جسد ولا صورة ولا أعضاء له. كان الله على مكان فهو الآن على ما عليه كان، فلا تضربوا لله الأمثال ولله المثل الأعلى. تنزه ربي عن الجلوس والقعود وعن الحركة والسكون وعن الاتصال والانفصال. لا يحل فيه شيء ولا ينحل منه شيء ولا يحل هو في شيء، لأنه ليس كمثله شيء. مهما تصورت ببالك فالله لا يشبه ذلك. ومن وصف الله بمعنى من معاني البشر فقد كفر. وأشهد أن سيدنا وعظيمنا وقائدنا وقرة أعيننا محمدا عبد الله ورسوله ونبيه وصفيه وحبيبه وخليله، أرسله الله هدى ورحمة للعالمين، هاديا ومبشرا ونذيرا وداعيا إلى الله بإذنه سراجا وهاجا وقمرا منيرا. اللهم صل وسلم وأعظم وأنعم وأكرم على هذا النبي الكريم سيدنا محمد خاتم النبيين، كلما ذكره الذاكرون وغفل عن ذكره الغافلون. الصلاة والسلام عليك يا سيدي يا رسول الله. الصلاة والسلام عليك يا سيدي يا حبيب الله. الصلاة والسلام عليك يا سيدي يا عظيم الجاه. Without being obligated, and I ask Allah to raise the rank of our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam and to protect his Muslim nation. I testify that no one deserves to be worshipped except Allah, the one without a partner, the one without an equal, the one without a similar, the one who is unlike anything in the universe and nothing in the universe is like him. He has no father, no mother, no sister, no brother, no son, and no daughter. He exists without time and place because he is the creator of time and place. He does not reside above the throne, and he is not attributed with fatigue like the Jews say. Our Lord is glorified beyond any imperfection that the non-Muslims attribute to him. Whatever you imagine in your mind, Allah Ta'ala does not resemble that. And whoever attributes an attribute of the creations to Allah is outside of Islam. And I testify that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the son of Abdullah, the son of Abdul Muttalib, the son of Hashim, the son of Abdul Manaf, from the tribe of Quraysh, is the best creation of Allah and his final prophet and messenger, sent to all humans and jinn, and he is truthful about everything that he conveyed of the revelation. Thereafter, we remind ourselves to have the sincere intention for the sake of Allah in attending this session of Islamic knowledge, because having the sincere intention is a requirement to get the reward. So the Muslim, whenever he does a good deed, he has to have the sincere intention for the sake of Allah to get reward for that good deed. The reward is defined as the compensation that the Muslim receives in the hereafter for the good deeds that he did in this life among what makes him happy. An example of the reward that is guaranteed to the righteous Muslim in the grave is that his grave is expanded approximately 105 feet by 105 feet, and his grave is illuminated with a light similar to the light of the full moon, and the fragrance of paradise will be present in the grave. The sincere intention means for the Muslim to do the good deed, seeking the acceptance of Allah only and not the praise of the people. So alhamdulillah, we are grateful to Allah. We are happy and we are thankful that Allah Ta'ala has guided us to Al-Islam, that Allah Ta'ala has made our hearts pleased with Al-Islam, that Allah Ta'ala guided our hearts to knowing and believing in Al-Islam. Because Islam is the greatest endowment. And we are grateful and thankful to Allah that we have been guided to have access to the authentic, connected chains of transmission which verify and validate the knowledge of Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah, because it is connected directly to the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So there is nothing that anyone can say against the information that is confirmed and transmitted through the confirmed and authentic chains of narration. That information that comes to us through that chain, it is the information that the Prophet ﷺ conveyed. And so in order for us to be successful in this life and in the hereafter, we would need to follow the Prophet ﷺ and implement that information that he transmitted to us. So without that information, without the knowledge of Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah, the person would be lost. So we're grateful and thankful to Allah that we have been granted access to that information, because that is the knowledge of Ahlul Sunnah. It is the light that illuminates the path for the one who wants to walk on the straight path. So that way that person can know if he's getting closer to his objective. We're going to continue on with the book that is known as Matn al-Ghayati wa-Taqrib, which is also famously known as Matn Abi Shuja, which is a beginner's book in the Islamic law according to the school of law of Al-Imam al-Shafi'i. Al-Imam al-Shafi'i is an undisputed Imam of Ahlul Sunnah. He is undisputed in having knowledge, and it's undisputed that he was knowledgeable, and it's undisputed that he was pious, and that he was special. He did special things. Inshallah, one day we'll be able to go deeper into the biography of Imam al-Shafi'i. But the overview is that Imam al-Shafi'i, he became a mujtahid at the age of 15. So in order to be a mujtahid, you have to know a lot of information, and you have to have above average intelligence, and you have to have other characteristics. And Imam al-Shafi'i, he had that. And for example, it was known about Imam al-Shafi'i that anything that he engaged in, anything that he involved himself in, he would do it, he'll become like an expert in it. And Imam Shafi'i, he was very, he was very good at shooting arrows, with a bow and arrow. And it was mentioned about him that he could hit the bullseye 10 times out of 10. But that he would purposely miss one so as to avoid, being like getting the evil eye, or for there to be some type of fitna. And for a proper, valid religious reason, for a virtue. So, mashallah. This is who Imam Shafi'i was. He has a madhab and a particular school of law that, in the cases that are not explicitly mentioned in the Quran, the Hadith, that he used the Quran, the Hadith to deduce that those would be like by his due diligence, and it's not something like easy or something that can be done by someone who doesn't have that level of knowledge and that level of character and those characteristics. It's not something, let's say, common that a person becomes a mujtahid. Even if he does become a scholar, but not all scholars can reach to the level of being a mujtahid. So this book is known as Matn Shuja. It is a beginner's book in the Islamic law according to Imam Shafi'i. So we finished the beginning parts, the beginning chapters. We talked about purification and its definition. We talked about the 7 types of water, and from one aspect of like their source. And then we categorized the water into 4 categories based on its judgment. So we said that the water is pure and purifying, not disliked, and that is the absolute water. Pure and purifying, disliked, and that is the sun-heated water. Then there is the pure but not purifying, which is the used water, or the water that's been mixed together with a natural or a pure substance to the point where it's not called water anymore. The changed water, and then the 4th is the filthy water, the najas water. So the filthy water, the najas water, is the 4th category. So we talked about those categories, and we finished that chapter. We mentioned some details about it. Then we began with the next section, which was tanning the skins of dead animals. So since we mentioned the correlation is that this is the chapter of purification. And so the purification, there's a certain type of purification that happens other than through water, for example, other than lifting a ritual of purity, other than doing something like removing filth, purifying an area that's been contaminated with filth. There is this type of purification where that thing that is originally judged as filthy, it would then be judged as pure. And without going through the same process as removing something that is contaminated with filth. So we mentioned the tanning the skins of dead animals. So we mentioned that if an animal is edible and it dies without being slaughtered, that the whole body of that animal becomes filthy now, because it's a dead, unslaughtered body. But also, we said if the animal is not edible to begin with, then no matter how it dies, it becomes, the whole body becomes filthy after it dies. And for the animal that's slaughtered, that's edible, after it's dead, the parts of it are not filthy because it was slaughtered. So if you slaughter a cow, then you can eat the meat, you can use the bones for something, you can use the skin, you can make it like, yeah, exactly, because it was slaughtered. So everything that comes off of it, and after it's dead, then it's pure, and except like blood and the feces and the urine. But for the animal that's not slaughtered, it just died, there's a way that we can, and so that stuff becomes filthy after it's dead, but there's a way that you can take that najas cow skin and you can do a process to it so that now it's not just as najas anymore. That process is called tanning. In Arabic it's called dibel. So, and we talked about how that goes. We mentioned the process. We said that the skin would be treated with a substance that is acrid, and we can look up that word, acrid. It's similar to acidic, something that stings, but it's like a substance that it corrodes. Because basically what's going to happen is that substance is going to be used to remove the excess flesh, to remove the hair that's still on the skin, because remember it's filthy. So all that stuff has to come off. The dictionary says acrid, sharp and harsh, or unpleasantly pungent in taste or odor, irritating. So a substance that's like that. We gave examples of a substance that is like that. We said the bird droppings are like that. So once the excess hair, the excess flesh, the chunks, the pieces of the skin, once they've been removed with that acrid substance like bird droppings, then now that skin, now all that has to happen is that skin has to be washed. So once the stuff is removed, then all that has to happen is that skin has to be washed, and now that skin becomes pure. Now you can use that skin like to make a jacket, you can use it to make a canteen, right? A leather canteen, use it to drink water out of. You can use it as a rug, you can use it like as a bed, because now it's been purified. Then we talked about certain animals. We said that sea animals, even if they die without being slaughtered, they don't need to be slaughtered. Their dead bodies are not najis. So if there's like a dead fish, you can touch it while it's wet and you won't have to wash your hands, for example, so that you can pray, because it's not filthy. If there's a dead fish, literally, as long as it's not like rotten, as long as it's not like to the point where it's repulsive or disgusting, then you can just eat it. You can eat it, like take a bite out of it after it's dead. Or you can cook it, right? Because people like to eat raw fish, not me. I like to cook it. Another thing that is not filthy after it dies, even if it's not slaughtered, is the locust. Now the locust, I'm sure you maybe have like a concept of it, but these locusts that we're talking about, they're big, and you can kill them, and they get roasted and they get eaten. The desert Arabs used to eat that. I don't know if in other cultures they did that too, but it's halal for us. So if you're ever in the desert and there's a locust and you kill it, you can eat it. If you're dying of starvation, which is probably when you would want to eat it. We also mentioned the judgment of the piece of the animal that is cut off from the animal while alive. We said that if let's say there's a cow, and then let's say its ear falls off while it's alive. If the cow is alive and its ear falls off while it's alive, not when it's dead, when it's alive, what's the judgment of that ear? Is it filthy or is it pure? So if we go by the rule is the piece of the animal that comes off the animal while the animal is alive has the judgment of that animal if it were made that, if it were a dead animal. So what would be the judgment of a cow if it just died without being slaughtered? What would be the judgment of it? The judgment of a cow if it were to die without being slaughtered? It would be meita. That means it would be najis. It would be najis. So the judgment of the piece of the cow that comes off of the cow while the cow is alive has the judgment of the cow when it's dead. So if the ear of the cow falls off while the cow is alive, that ear is najis. Yeah, because we check when let's say the ear of the cow falls off, we check what's the judgment of the cow if it were to die without being slaughtered. The judgment is that would be meita. So then that ear will be considered meita that came off the cow. The exception is the hair of the animal that we can slaughter it and eat it that comes off while alive. And so the hair includes the feather, the wool, and like whatever, the fur. So if the ear of the cow, if it falls off while the cow is alive, the judgment of the ear is that it's najis. But the hair of the cow, whatever it doesn't have like some hair, like the hair of the cow, if it falls off the cow while it's alive, what's the judgment of that hair? It's not najis, it's pure. That is the exception. Yeah, because it's the exception to the rule. Because even though it's an edible animal, what's the judgment of the edible animal if it dies without being slaughtered? So I couldn't hear you say that again. If it dies without being slaughtered.
Yes.
Yes.
Without, before.
Before, while it's alive, exactly. Only the hair.
Yeah.
The hair and like the sweat and the saliva.
Yeah. They after the time of time, before time, they is like.
That's correct. But then if the hair came off while it was alive, it stays pure. Even after the cow dies. Doesn't mean that it changes. But any hair after the cow dies would be considered to be najis.
Yeah, but you're using the example for elephant, for one?
No, I said a cow.
No, before you said elephant.
No, never said elephant. Only cow. The ear of the cow. Yeah, so, and this applies to, let's take another example. A chicken. Let's say the chicken's foot, right? Let's say the chicken got into a fight with another chicken and the one chicken slashed it and cut off his foot. So now the chicken foot is off the chicken's gonna stay alive. He's not gonna die from it, usually, right? They don't die from that. So the foot of the chicken is now off the chicken and the chicken is still alive. What's the judgment of the foot? You use the rule. What's the judgment of the chicken if it were to die without being slaughtered? It would be najis. So that foot that came off the chicken while it's alive would be najis. Because whatever is cut off from an alive animal, that part that gets cut off has the judgment of that animal that is made that when it dies and is killed without slaughtering. And obviously if it's a not edible animal, that It's najis in all cases. If it's an edible animal and it dies without being slaughtered, what's the judgment of it? It's filthy, it's najis. So the part of it that came off of it while it was alive has that same judgment. Except the hair and the feather and the wool and the fur of the edible animal. So that's the one exception. So we have, let's say, a chicken. That chicken, its foot got cut off while it was alive. The judgment of the foot is that it's filthy. But what if the feather of the chicken came off while it was alive? What's the judgment of it? It's not najis, it's pure. Because that's the exception. Clear on that? We started with the usage of gold and silver containers, and this is where we're going to continue from today. I know that we read a little bit last time, but it'll serve as a good review. So we're starting at page 35. The author said, the usage of golden and silver containers. Now, reviewing the fiqh, the law, is essential. Because it's the law. Like, you know, for example, we hear the creed so much. Allah exists without a place. Allah is attributed with all power and perfection. Allah has no beginning. And then you hear it a lot, you become, like comfortable. Right? You're used to hearing, you know these things. Here we're talking about the law. We're talking about any specific parameters, specific limits, and going over the limit, it becomes a different judgment. Going under the limit is a different judgment. Like, it's very specific. Everything goes in its place. There's conditions, there's integrals, there's recommendations, there's levels, there's like, for example, valid without reward, valid with reward, valid the perfect way. So there's, even within perfection, there's like what they call adna al-kamal. In the Islamic law, they use it a lot. Adna al-kamal. And the least perfection. Like the minimum that is considered perfection is that. What's an example of that? Like saying, Subhana Rabbi al-Azim, when you're in ruku' 3 times. That's the least perfection. But so anyway, that's why I reviewed everything that we took, because once you hear it over and over and over, then you also become comfortable with the law. You get used to the way that the scholars of the Islamic law speak, so you can know the law. So page 35, the usage of golden and silver containers. We're going to read above the line first and then below the line. The usage of golden and silver containers is not permissible. So that's the first judgment. And when we say containers, we mean anything that is used like a tool. A cup, a bowl, a jug, a pot, anything that can hold something in it, anything that's like a utensil. A utensil is more general. It is permissible to use other types of containers. So it's haram to use golden and silver utensils, containers, forks, spoons, plates, cups, let's say a hammer, a golden hammer. This is haram to use it as a hammer. Like, let's say a golden watch. Anything that is a tool but made out of gold. That it itself is golden. This is forbidden. Like a golden toilet. Like some of those Saudi people do in the Gulf. That they have golden toilets. This is haram. By consensus. Like having a golden sink with a golden faucet. This is haram. Like those Saudis do. Na'udhu billah. Using gold and silver, gold utensils, and making something that's like a tool out of gold. A golden plate, a golden spoon, a golden fork, a golden cup. Any of those objects that are utensils. cualquier cosa que se usa como un instrumento. Por ejemplo, tener una mesa de oro, por ejemplo, una silla de oro. Todo que se usa, que uno lo usa. Un reloj, una puerta, un cuadro, un inodoro, por ejemplo, un microondas, un martillo. They're wild, bro. They have a golden toilet. Like, why do you have a golden toilet for? It's wild. But it is permissible to use other types of containers. So now we're going to read below the line. It says, this chapter pertains to tools and containers. It is not permissible to use golden and silver containers. We're not going to read footnote number 12 because we don't want to go into too much detail to overwhelm the beginner. If it's your first time experiencing the Islamic law, you're going to stick to the basic explanation. Those details on the bottom, inshallah, we can go over them another time. But for now, what's beneficial is for you to get the basic information. It is not permissible to use golden and silver containers, but it is lawful to use other containers. If there is no necessity, that is, no Islamic excuse, then it is prohibited for a male or female to use golden and silver utensils. Because Al-Bukhari and Muslim narrated that the Prophet ﷺ said, do not use golden and silver utensils, neither to eat nor to drink. The same judgment applies whether the utensil is small or big, whether it is used to eat with, drink with, for purification, for eyelining, or other than that. It is prohibited except for some cases. This is by consensus. If one buys some of those utensils not with the intention of using them, but for their value, it is haram, it is prohibited, although there is another saying in the Shafi'i school that it is permissible. So what is called al-iqtina in Arabic, which basically means like just having it, right? Like the person has golden and silver spoons, but they don't use it to eat. They just have it there. There's two sayings about it in the Shafi'i school. One saying that it's haram, and another saying that it is permissible. Now the author is going to talk about when the thing is plated with gold, meaning that there's a layer of gold plating that is added to it. So he says, if one coats the utensil that is not made out of gold or silver, rather out of copper, for example, with gold or silver lightly, such that the gold does not melt in a way it accumulates, then it is permissible to use it. So that's the detail for the golden and silver utensils that are plated with gold or silver. So how do we know if it's haram or not? If there's a spoon, if there's a fork, if there's a plate, it's not made out of gold. It's made out of copper, it's made out of brass, it's made out of aluminum, it's made out of whatever metal that they use. But they plated it with gold or silver. Meaning that they did actually use gold or silver, but it's just like a coloring, but of gold and silver. So here we check. Is there enough gold and silver on it that if it were to melt, that it would accumulate? That you can melt it and it would make like a puddle, let's say, small puddle, of gold or silver. If the answer is yes, then it's haram to use it. If the answer is no, then it's permissible. So it's an estimation. It's something that goes by estimation. ¿Los qué? Exacto, exacto. Entonces aquí uno tiene que estimar. Si eso fuera, digamos, quemado o puesto al fuego, se le derrite esa capa de tal manera que se acumula, que hace como un charquito de oro o de plata. Si la respuesta es sí, entonces es prohibido usarlo. Si la respuesta es no, entonces no es prohibido. Entonces uno tendría que verificar eso. Yo personalmente no lo usaría.
Claro, pero bueno saber. Y eso es por consenso.
Por el oro es por consenso, sí.
Que no es permitido usarlo como...
Que no es permitido usar las herramientas o los utensilios. ¿Utensilios? Utensilios, ok. Los utensilios de oro o de plata. Que son hechos de ese metal. And then he says, however, if one had, for example, a broken metallic container and one wanted to solder it with silver or gold, or to decorate it with gold or silver, doing that with gold is prohibited. And for the consensus of silver, I'm doubting, but for sure gold is my consensus. However, if one had, for example, a broken metallic container and one wanted to solder it with silver or gold, or to decorate it with gold or silver, doing that with gold is prohibited. If it is done with silver, it is permissible. So now we're talking about soldering. What is soldering? It's like when you use the gold or the silver like to stitch or patch up the broken metallic container. So let's say there's a container of steel or a container of iron, like a pot or a pan or a skillet, and it got a crack in it. So now how do you hold it together? Not with glue, not with super glue. You have to hold it with another metal. So usually they would use gold or silver because they're strong. And because also the property of the gold and silver is very like pure. But anyway, the point is that you can use that, you can do that, you can solder it with silver or gold. So when it's for a need, you can use silver or gold. Now if the person wants to just decorate it, it's forbidden one way with gold. And for the silver, it's permissible to do. And to decorate it with silver.
And the quantity is not important.
It doesn't matter, the quantity matters, because if it's a lot for decoration, if it's a lot of silver for decoration, then it's forbidden. And he mentions it here. He says, Anas ibn Malik, he had a cup that the Prophet ﷺ used to drink from. He showed it once to a tabi'i, meaning a follower of the companions. He said that it was broken and soldered with silver. And so the companion, Anas ibn Malik, he had a cup that the Prophet ﷺ used to drink from, and he used to use it. And it was broken, and it had been soldered with silver. And so that follower of the companion, he saw that. So the scholars, they took from that it's permissible, because it was a little amount. Now the judgment is, if the quantity of silver that is used is a lot, and it was used to fix the container, then it's makruh, disliked. If, however, it was only used to decorate, and it was a lot, then it is sinful. In the case of the silver. In the case of the silver, you have those details. In the case of the gold, you don't have those details. If it was a little silver for decoration, then it's permissible. To know what is considered a little or a lot, one goes back to the norm in relation to that utensil. Any questions or anything about that before moving on to the next part? طيب. Anybody has a question, just put it in the chat. طيب. Moving on. The author said, note, it is permissible if one's nose was cut off to put a golden nose instead. Or if the tip of a finger fell or tooth, to put a golden tooth for both men and women. So here, and we're not talking about like what certain people do when they get gold teeth, but it's not like their actual tooth. It's like a grill. They put it like over their teeth. This is obviously forbidden. And actually, it's like not good. It's not good for the teeth. It like makes the teeth go get rotten. I don't do that. But let's say somebody lost a tooth, then it's permissible for them to get a replacement tooth that's made out of gold. Same thing with the other body parts. Like if, subhanAllah, things might happen in this world. You get into some sort of accident, and now you lost your nose. Do you want to walk around looking like a skeleton? Or like someone might say Skeletor, that might be too old of a reference for you. But just imagine like what the human face looks like without a nose on it. Do you want to walk around looking like that? No. You want to have something there. And nowadays, like they don't use like prosthetics of gold and stuff like that. They use like plastic. But like they use it's like silicone. Like you wear it. Like if somebody like lost a nose or something like that, they wear like something on their face or something. But anyway, in the past they didn't have those synthetic materials that are based in petroleum, so they hadn't discovered it yet. But they used to have prosthetics like made out of metal. Yeah. Still, even till now. Oh.
I don't know because 25
Okay,
years.
but in your lifetime.
They do that.
With the gold?
That is like platinum. It's like
Oh, platinum.
It's like silver, no?
It's platinum, they call it white gold. Yeah, but I don't think it's gold. But so then, if you were to get a prosthetic nose made out of, let's say, steel or iron, what would happen? You would get an infection, like that area would become rotten because of mixing together with the metal. There's impurities in the metal, etc. So it would be a bad situation for that person. You'd be worse off than like not having a nose or just not putting anything. But then they would use the golden nose. They would make a nose out of gold or something that looks like a nose, so you could just put it there so it just looks like a nose. And they would not get infected and it wouldn't rot because the properties of the gold, they don't have as much impurities in it. But so it's permissible if your nose gets cut off to get a golden nose. If your finger gets cut off to get a golden finger. If your tooth falls out to get a golden tooth. And I actually had a colleague of mine, my brother knows him as well, very good brother, very knowledgeable. I think he got his doctorate now. He teaches overseas. He comes from like a family of knowledge, like his father was someone that was involved in the knowledge. Where were they from? Chechnya?
Chechnya,
yeah. He used to have a golden tooth.
4.
Yeah, 4. So, we always, all of us knew this case. All of us were well acquainted with this case.
In that case, you can use.
Yeah, because,
For example, the nose.
for example, the nose, yeah. But then, mashallah, after he became more formally situated, he got them changed. So some people, their horizons aren't as expanded, so that would be something that gets in the way between them and learning. So for the benefit, obviously, he did that. Allah reward him. Using the siwak. Now we finished that chapter, now we're going to a new chapter called Using the Siwak. Are there any questions before moving on? Tayyib, let's continue. So this section is now using the siwak. And of course it's related because it's part of purification, because there is the other definition and concept of purification in Islam, which is physical hygiene. So in Islam, it's part of our religion. And we are encouraged and ordered to be clean, physically clean. And of course, being spiritually clean is better, is what takes precedence. Like if you could only do one or the other, then you be spiritually clean. But meaning that you wouldn't be sinful, for example, if you weren't physically clean, as long as there's no filth involved, no najis involved. But the point is that in Islam we're encouraged to be physically clean and spiritually clean. So hygiene is something that is essential in Islam. And so part of that includes using the siwak, the tooth stick. So this is what this chapter is about. Page 37, using the siwak. The siwak tooth stick, we're reading above the line. The siwak tooth stick is recommended in all situations, except after the zenith for the fasting person. So the author, he said that, he mentioned that in his book, and that's a judgment that is known in the Shafi'i school. Let's check out footnote number 13, see what it says. It's a very beneficial, easy information. It says, as-siwak in the language means to rub. And linguistically, in Arabic, as-siwak, it means to rub. And it means the instrument itself, and the thing that you are rubbing with, both are referred to as siwak. So the action of rubbing and the instrument that you're using for the rubbing, they're both called in Arabic linguistically siwak. Religiously, Islamically, it means using the instrument for the teeth and what is around them with an intention. So it doesn't only have to be like this kind. Anything that is rugged or rough, something that scrapes or brushes, can be used for siwak. So the Muslim would get reward for using it with that intention. So religiously it means using the instrument for the teeth and what is around them with a specific intention. So that's footnote number 13. Footnote number 14. There is another saying that even after the zenith, it is recommended for the fasting person to use the tooth stick. And that's actually the chosen saying in the Shafi'i school. Then it says, and in 3 cases, it is more strongly recommended: when the mouth changes because of azm or something else, when waking up from sleep, and when standing for prayer. Now we're going to read below the line. The author said, linguistically, in the Arabic language, siwak means the action of rubbing. And it can also mean what you use when rubbing. Likewise, religiously it means to use a stick or the like to clean one's mouth. The sunnah of siwak occurs by using any pure, rough matter that removes the yellow layer that covers the teeth. So it is not a condition to use the stick. Any rough matter will work. So the stick, for example, like a certain type of material on the shirt, for example, this threading here on the shirt, for example, the rim of a kufi or a qalensua, a paper towel, that works as siwak.
And what's an example of that?
I am now using a siwak, following the command of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, imitating the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam
Does it need to be specific?
to get reward. No. Then he says, it is better to use the stick, especially al-araq. So you can use any type of stick, whether it's from the araq tree or from another tree. And in Ethiopia they have siwaks that are from different trees. They're not like this. They're like straight up branches. Como si cortaron una palma de un árbol y inmediatamente lo pusieron así. Yeah, but they still work. It's still beneficial. Then he says, but if one uses a rough finger with the intention of doing this sunnah, it works. Yeah. Like even if it was your own finger according to some. But for sure, according to all of them, using somebody else's finger. But when it comes to using your own finger, there's a difference of opinion. He says it is sunnah for the person to use the siwak at any time. Footnote, let's go to footnote 15. What is azm? Azm, the scholars differed about azm. The scholars had a difference of opinion about what does it mean, azm. Some said it is long silence, and others said that it is eating food with a foul smell. And so the point is that there's three situations, three circumstances where it is the most, or where it is strongly recommended for the person to use the siwak. When the mouth changes because of staying quiet for a long time, which is the person, if they stay quiet for a long time, then obviously their breath changes. So when that happens, then it's strongly recommended to use the siwak, because then that change in the breath would be taken away, would be removed. It is strongly recommended to use the siwak when the mouth changes because of eating a foul-smelling food. Like let's say something like with strong garlic or something like that leaves a foul smell in the mouth. It's strongly recommended to use the siwak. Why? Because again, part of the perfection of Islam is that it encourages the Muslim to be clean physically and spiritually. And of course, if something is like smelling bad, if your breath is smelling bad, that means it needs to be cleaned. So that's part of that cleanliness. And then it said, so that's what azm is. Footnote number 16, al-araq. Al-araq is a type of tree that is tall and smooth with lots of branches. Any wood can be used, anything that is rough and pure, that removes the yellowness from the teeth, like the plaque. One can use a piece of cloth. One can use a toothbrush because it has the required characteristics. But to gain reward, one must remember the intention that one is doing a sunnah. So if you're going to get the reward, you want to get the reward for brushing your teeth, then you have to remember the intention of doing the sunnah. That they're doing the siwak. And then it says it is sunnah for the person to use the siwak at any time except after the start of dhuhr until sunset if one is fasting according to a saying. Yes.
We cannot use the siwak like it's habit. We have to use it. Sometimes we are doing something like the siwak. If you don't have the good intention, you don't have to use it.
Correct. Then footnote number 17, it says, there are many benefits to using the siwak. It yields acceptance from Allah, and that by itself is enough for us because of its rewardability. And because the Muslim, when he sees the reward in hereafter, and he's going to physically experience the value of doing the good deeds. And to the extent that the person feels a certain thing, and of course it's something not, let's say, painful or disturbing, but they feel a certain thing when they see the value, the manifestation of the value of the reward in the hereafter, and they would have a certain wish that they had done more while they were alive, and that they did not spend the time in something other than what gets reward. Then the author said, it is something that the devil hates, and using the siwak is something that the devil hates. It cleans the mouth, it improves one's breath, and it multiplies the reward for the person. And we'll continue with the rest of the chapter, inshallah, next week. Well, we'll stop here for today. We'll talk more about the benefits of using the siwak. Are there any questions? Does anyone have any? Is there anything in the chat?
Question. For the non-edible animal, it doesn't have that exception of like the hair or stuff like that. Wherever it attaches from it with our lighter, that it's nice.
طيب نهلل لا إله إلا الله اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم ربي اغفر لي وللمؤمنين والمؤمنات بارك الله فيكم السلام عليكم.